What up, YouTube? We are working on a show specifically for YouTube, and we can't wait to share it with you, so stay tuned for that. Also, go to the website if you're curious about the coffee, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast with BJJ Cop. Enjoy. We're off and running.
Awesome.
Sweet, man. So, it's RGJ. What's the RG stand for?
Enzo Gracie.
Oh, right on. That's who's in the photo on your Facebook page.
It is. The reason I do that, like a lot of police officers, we don't use our real names on our social media for reasons of people being able to look us up too easily. So it's not like it's that hard to find me because I'm kind of out there a little bit, but I just don't want someone to be able to type in my name and I pop up immediately. You know, if you want to find me, you got to do at least a little bit of work.
Yeah, I understand that totally, man. I've got several friends that are cops. One of the guys that runs the gym we're at, he was a I guess SWAT guy up in Kansas City area. So, and I mean, it's pretty cool. And I've actually, you're the second police officer I've had on the podcast.
Oh, fantastic!
Yep. So it's.
I guess the first guy didn't mess it up for us.
No, man, he's a cool dude. I actually have a lot of respect for cops and law enforcement of all sorts. I always say you have the toughest job of any of the people. Like firefighters, people are waiting to hug them and thank them and everything, and police officers are nothing but mad at them all the time. So
it's a weird job for sure, and it can be very tough. But it has its own rewards. It can be an extremely rewarding job as well.
Oh, I'm sure it does. I mean, you wouldn't be in it. I don't think people should get in that profession if they don't feel that way. Like if there's not something rewarding and they don't love that job.
No, this is not a job you jump. It does happen. People do get into law enforcement that they're looking for a check. They think it's maybe an easy way to get a check or a simple way, or I'm not sure what they're thinking, but it's not something that you just, because you're giving up your holidays, you're giving up weekends, you're giving up normal sleep schedules for a really long time, and you're under a high stress situation, which, to be honest with you, it just seems like the stress level is getting higher and higher for us because the public scrutiny and the public expectations are higher and higher for us, and it's a high stress career field. But if you love doing it, you love helping people, and you've got it in your blood, then there's nothing else like it.
Well, I saw your pictures on Instagram. I don't know how I came across it either. I think either a fighter liked one of your photos or something that I follow. But it showed up on my page. I was like, dude, that guy looks freaking tough. And obviously I was drawn to it, you know, and I clicked on it to see what it was, and I was like, oh, he's in Houston. That's cool. And then I was like, jiu-jitsu for cops too? Oh, this is all sorts of cool stuff going on. Like, and then I dove down a little, like, just to see what your little academy was about and all that, and just from the outside looking in, it really piqued my interest of you. Like, I guess you do the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu stuff, and then you also have a different thing, or at least a kind of like a thing for like specifically for law enforcement people. Is that right?
So, kind of. It's what we do is, so I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been doing that over 12 years. I got my black belt about a year and a half ago under Enzo Gracie Academy. Brian Marvin's my professor down in Houston. And what the law enforcement aspect, what you're looking for, that's kind of developed over a few years. I kind of, doing jiu-jitsu, I picked it up. I've been a police officer over 20 years. And I picked up jiu-jitsu, like I said, about 12 years ago, over 12 years ago now. And I knew I needed something. And I'd been on the street, and every physical encounter I had, it was tackle and just overpower them and wait till people get there to help you, or, you know, it was a lot of just good luck and good fortune, really, to be honest. And I kind of knew it instinctively, and so I knew I needed to start training something. And I started, you know, UFC was getting pretty big, and it had been for a couple of years at that point, and or at least it was starting to be. And so I kind of looked into jiu-jitsu of all the martial arts I could train, and it just seemed like well, I went and trained a class, and I was immediately hooked, and I immediately realized how this has direct application to what we do on the street. It's really what you want to do when you're arresting somebody on the street is you want to use the minimal amount of force necessary to control somebody and get them handcuffed. Well, in jiu-jitsu, you want to use the minimum amount of force and energy necessary to control somebody and submit them. So it's really it's absolutely made for law enforcement. So I started training for quite a while, and when I got pretty proficient, about a little bit into my brown belt level, which I'd been training like 8 years at that point, maybe 9. I thought, well, I've always tried to influence police officers to train because I thought it made them safer on the street, made them less likely to be sued. It gave them a better chance to get home safely, and it even helped us with suspects, getting them arrested without injuring them. And so I started kind of putting out videos of, hey, this is in my uniform. I was like, this is what you can do with jiu-jitsu in your uniform. Like, you can totally move. This is how it can be used effectively to arrest people. And it generated a lot of interest. And a lot of police officers started kind of hitting me up saying, hey, I think this is something I need to do or I want to do, and which was exactly the response I was looking for. So you fast forward a little bit further, and a guy named Ari in Canada, Ari Nazan, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well as Japanese jiu-jitsu, and he's got a much longer history of martial arts than I do. But he found one of my videos, and he sent me a message saying, hey, I really like what you're doing. And I knew the guy's name because when I was a white belt, he was putting out videos on YouTube, instructionals. And back then he was a purple belt, and I recognized him on Instagram, and I immediately asked him, I said, is this Ari from Submissions 101? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, dude, I'm such a fan. Like, I used to always watch your stuff before I go train so I could learn new techniques. And we struck up a friendship. And out of that friendship, we developed this company called Invictus, where our goal is, one, which is something we're both very passionate about, is to encourage officers to start training jiu-jitsu for their safety, for their benefit, for their family's benefit, for the benefit of the officers they work with. And to start putting on seminars to hopefully encourage police departments around the country to start making it a major part of their defensive tactics programs. So, in a nutshell, the Invictus, what you were seeing on that one part, it's jiu-jitsu, and we gear it towards police officers, but it's not exclusive towards police officers, because kind of what we want to do is we want to show, hey, just jiu-jitsu that you train every day doesn't have to be specifically made for police work. It's already made for police work. You may do a couple minor tweaks here and there when it comes to weapon safety or something like that, but the jiu-jitsu that you learn in an academy has direct application to the job on the street.
Well, I guess the one thing I saw, like, I've seen a couple things where you're either rolling or you've got other people rolling in uniform. And I just thought that was, and you mentioned it earlier that you put out videos like that, and that really, like, I was like, that is exactly what they, like, kind of need to be doing. Like, you're not just rolling with a gi or no gi or whatever it is. You're actually doing it in uniform, just like you would be if you were chasing down a suspect.
Yeah, and you have to. When it comes to jiu-jitsu and using it for defensive tactics, you can learn it without being in uniform, and you have to learn it that way. But once you kind of get a grasp of it, you can train in your uniform or train in a simulated uniform with gear on, and it still works. Like, all jiu-jitsu still works. There's some minor adjustments and some things maybe that you can't normally do, but really when it comes to when you're on the street and you're having to do defensive tactics, when you're having to defend yourself or put someone in custody, it's going to get real basic and really about fundamentals anyway. And all the fundamentals work with a uniform on, like every one of them. And that's why I put a uniform on. I wanted guys to see, hey, because I would get talking to other officers about it. They were like, well, but you can't do that with your gear on. You can't do. How are you going to do that with a belt on and your vest? And I was like, well, I'll show you. And so I started doing videos, and I would even get requests. Can you do this? And I was like, oh, let's find out. And so I would try it, and if it worked real well, I would post the video saying, yeah, I could do it. If it was something that I didn't think was would work, or I couldn't really make it work. I'd send him a message like, no, that one doesn't really work. But yeah, I mean, yeah, using your uniform or training in a uniform is an important part of jiu-jitsu for police.
I think that's one thing that really attracts me to jiu-jitsu and like that whole martial art there is that it's not one pigeonholed to really a specific ideology, I guess, if you want to say. It's always growing and moving. It's like chess with human pieces. And then at the same time, it's 100% practical from a kid to like a kid dealing with a bully to a grown adult defending themselves to a police officer.
Yeah, actually, you nailed it when you were just saying that. It's human chess, and it's always evolving. And I mean, you nailed it. And I can't remember who it was that said, they basically said that jiu-jitsu never ends. And I can't think of his name right now. He's one of my favorite practitioners, but he's right. Like it's something that just never stops evolving or changing, and it amazes me how creative people can be with jiu-jitsu and keep developing new techniques, or maybe they're rediscovering some techniques, but it's always evolving. The game is always evolving. You see it through competition. You see it through a lot of things. And I think that's another thing that makes it so attractive is it's always engaging your mind. Like you can never master jiu-jitsu. You can get really, really good at jiu-jitsu to where only a few people can submit you or control you, but you'll never master it. You'll never know everything there is about jiu-jitsu. A friend of mine was just showing me a technique the other day in the gym. It was a foot lock off of something I like to do a lot. So I was frustrated when he did it because I was like, that's what move I like. And he says, he was like, Jason's my best friend, Ron. He goes, Jason, do you know where I saw this? I was like, where? He goes, Renzo Gracie was showing it. Now, Renzo Gracie's one of the legends, He's an old school jiu-jitsu guy. But they've been doing that. They were doing that for years ago. And it's this devious little footlock that he showed me. And I was like, man, I've never seen that. I would have never thought of it till you showed that to me. And so, yeah, jiu-jitsu, you'll never master it. And I think that's one of the things that's so attractive about it, too.
Well, and I mean, for me, I can't speak for anybody else as far as like what they like and don't like, but it seems like human beings are attracted to things that they can never fully win. Like if you could get to the top and you can beat something, then you're kind of done with it.
Yeah.
And like overall, finding those things where you can never, like you said, you can never master jiu-jitsu. You can never win. You can never be the best because jiu-jitsu always wins.
There's always someone better. It doesn't matter where you go. There's always, with maybe even the top guys on the planet, Gordon Ryan, whoever, Marcelo Garcia, they've all been submitted by somebody. And you'll never be the absolute best forever. You may be on top for a minute, but there's always someone better. And it's funny. It kind of reminds me of I was talking to this guy that trains with us, and he's an Olympian in Taekwondo. He was, I believe, he was a bronze medalist in Taekwondo. His name's Mark Lopez. And in Houston, they're kind of famous, the Lopez family, because like their whole family was Olympians at one point, and it was like a big deal. And but he said he got bored of Taekwondo because there's only so many techniques you can do, and he wasn't challenged at all. So he started training jiu-jitsu, and he's got talent for jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's a high level athlete, so he's picking up on it very fast. But what he was liking about it was he couldn't see, like he's like, it just seems like it's something that's gonna last forever, which of course makes it so attractive.
Yeah. Now, when you did this stuff and you started back when you just started doing the jiu-jitsu to help yourself in your career in law enforcement and needing it, did you find that your like mental and like you're not only physically but like mentally and like your stress levels just went like lowered immediately and your confidence went up?
I will. So a lot of people, you'll hear people say jiu-jitsu saved my life, which if you look at that, you can take that for a lot of different meanings. You can look at that from a lot of different perspectives. I would say, when I started training jiu-jitsu, I'm about 5'7". I was like 220 pounds at the time. I was overweight. I was lost physically. You know, I was a very athletic kid, and then I had gotten married young, and we had kids, and I wasn't paying attention to my body. I wasn't doing the things I needed to do to be a fit police officer, to be a fit person. I was kind of lost, and I was looking for that extra thing. And when I found jiu-jitsu, I immediately shut off all the weight in like 6 to 7 months. It came right off of me. But I was very focused on training and all around lifting, training, doing everything. And it really refocused my mind on a different lifestyle that was very healthy for me, that was healthy for my career. And to say it changed me 180 degrees is, I think, maybe even an understatement. It really completely flipped who I was as a person when I started training jiu-jitsu. So the stress levels went down. It created a new camaraderie outside of police work of people I was friends with. Some were police officers, but a lot weren't. It changed my life for the better in ways that I can't imagine. Like I can't imagine my life now without jiu-jitsu. I don't think I would be a very happy person. I would probably still be overweight and still searching for whatever it is I needed to do to change my life. I don't know, but I know jiu-jitsu, just through a mental health and physical health and happiness standpoint, it definitely it was a big deal. It definitely saved my life in that manner.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, I find it very interesting that the importance of, like you mentioned, having friends outside of work, and building that community, something like where people go through struggle together and they can relate to each other, but outside of like that place of work. I find it to be so very important for your mental happiness, your overall enjoyment of life. You may not be depressed and you may not be lost or anything, but it just makes life so much better when you find a community like that.
Man, it's funny. I went from most of my friends were law enforcement related to almost none of my friends are law enforcement related in jiu-jitsu. And the thing is, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, there's something that's you develop a close friendship with some people because you're on the mat and you're literally practicing murdering each other. At least when you start getting decent enough, you're actually practicing murdering each other, and it develops or severely injuring each other. It develops a bond that's hard to explain to other people. There's, it kind of exists in law enforcement for sure, because when you go through stuff on the street together, you develop that similar kind of bond. But it's a strange bond. And so I kind of went from where I had very few friends who were in law enforcement. Almost all my friends were jiu-jitsu related. That's who I was hanging out with all the time. And then now I have both now. I've developed, I've been in law enforcement a long time, so I have friendships through there that I just have had for a long time that are very close. But now I've developed friendships with police officers who train jiu-jitsu, and as well as just people who aren't police officers who train jiu-jitsu. But it's funny, I've kind of come around to where I've got police officers who train jiu-jitsu for a long time, and I share some very close bonds with them now as well. So it's been great, like just to have a wide variety of friends. I feel like it's helped me be a much more balanced person with balanced perspectives too.
Yeah, and you kind of learn that when you get into something just like this. Like, and I'm a firm believer in, you have to struggle through things to like, you need struggle in order to really fully know what enjoyment is, what happiness is. Like, you can't have one without the other. It's like the yin and the yang. Like, if everything was easy, you would never fully know. Like, that thing wouldn't be so enjoyable. Like, if it was easy, you wouldn't be like, I nailed it, and you wouldn't be like celebrating your victories. It would just be like, oh, it's just another day. It's whatever. I can do this all the time. And I think things like jiu-jitsu and whatever it is that you pick that's difficult, but especially in jiu-jitsu, where if you purposely bring on a good struggle, like something that you're working on that's improving your body, it seems to like you have less struggles in the wrong areas.
I think it's weird how jujitsu for me, and talking to other people that I've been training for a long time, how much it relates to real life. And a lot of jujitsu is struggling through being uncomfortable and learning to grind, because it takes a long time to get good at jujitsu. Like, I don't think people really understand. One, they may not even know the difference between jujitsu and karate, which I get that, and it's extremely frustrating because let me show you what a karate chop looks like.
Yeah.
But it gets frustrating. But the jiu-jitsu is very hard. It takes a long time to get good at it. It took me 10 years. It took me over 10 years to get to my black belt. I trained pretty consistently the whole time. There's some people who get it a lot quicker, and there's some people who get it a little bit. It takes a lot longer. But even after I've been training over like 12 and a half years now, it's like I still feel like I'm constantly learning. I still feel like I barely have a real grasp on it. And the thing that it's kind of taught me is you just have to stay very consistent and keep grinding constantly to keep improving and stuff. And so it's kind of worked well for me in my professional life. I've been a police officer over 20 years, and I'm getting to a point. I'm administrative now. I'm actually in the very top part of my department, but it's taken me a long time to get here. But it's been through grinding and being consistent and just working hard and working consistently, kind of like you do in jiu-jitsu. You just got to keep working and grinding consistently in jiu-jitsu. Eventually you get pretty good at it. Eventually you start to learn a lot of stuff, and it becomes something that once you get really good at. Some people like to say jiu-jitsu is kind of like a superpower, and it kind of is, depending on how good you are at it. Yeah. But it definitely can be, especially compared to if you're in a physical situation with someone who's untrained.
Well, how many years? Like what belt were you when you opened your academy?
Oh, so I don't have an academy. I train at Renzo Gracie's.
Oh, gotcha.
Gracie, Houston, and I'm an instructor there.
Gotcha.
And then Invictus is our company where we do put up and we do teach seminars at different locations. It's geared towards police officers, but we do it for everyone. But I don't have my own academy yet. It's something I've thought about. Right now, professionally, I'm very busy with my job, my career, and with some of the other stuff I got going on. So it was something I was looking at doing with my brother, but I'm having to pull back now for a little bit just because professionally I don't have the time to.
Well, I kind of misspoke there. I meant the Invictus thing. Like, what belt were you when you started that thing?
Oh, it's a black belt. We started that a little over a year ago. So that was a collaboration between me and Ari Nazan. And I was a black belt at that point once we started that. So
man, it seems like it's going really well for only being like a year.
Well, it's gosh, I don't even know. I can't even say it's been a year. We started working on it about a year ago, but our first seminar was actually in June of last year. And then we did so we've had 4 seminars. We call them super seminars. The super seminars are ones we do in major locations, and those involve multiple, like 4 instructors, and they're usually 2-day events. And there's a lot of getting together. Like the Friday before our seminar, we call it an open mat. That's where everybody gets together and just trains on their own with each other. There's no instruction. It's just guys meeting and training together. Open mat's a real big deal in jiu-jitsu when people can just roll and not have to sit through instruction. A lot of guys like to do that.
Yeah. The few times I've done it, like that's what you go through the little piece. You're drilling tiny little moves, just little. And this is one thing that if nobody's ever done it, this is from a novice who's just rolled a few times, and this is how crazy this. I don't know if you want to call it a sport, martial art. This activity really is that they will drill one little move of the knee, one little move of the hand, one little move of the knee, one little move of the hand. And you just drill that with all the different people for, I guess, half the class. I don't know what some other ones do, but we drilled it for like half the class, and then you got like 3 5-minute rounds or whatever it was, or 3-minute rounds where you rolled with different partners. That was free. And then but everything before that, for an hour, it's just drills.
Yeah, well, so like a typical jiu-jitsu class is and they vary, But let's say an average jiu-jitsu class to be 30 to 40 minutes of warm up and then drilling a technique, right? So you're right. It could be a big movement, or more times than not, it's a few small movements because jiu-jitsu is so difficult and complicated. You have to learn real small parts of moves to get good at them at a time, and then you got to drill them, and then you got to practice them under pressure, which means trying to do techniques on someone when they're trying to do techniques on you at the same time, or they're countering, and you got to learn to counter to the counter. So that's what you do in live training, is you basically pressure test everything. So you try to strangle each other or break each other's limbs, and at the same time, and you can go pretty hard. And most people who do jiu-jitsu, that's their favorite part, right? That's the part that gets super addictive, is when you start getting some of these techniques down, then being able to actually get someone to tap on a, say, triangle choke, right, or whatever, it's very exciting. So that's what everybody wants to do, and they want to let that energy out and get at it. And so we do like we just do the open mat where it's just everybody just getting at it for about 2 hours, and then we'll go to dinner that night to it's more getting to know each other and just kind of that the brotherhood of jiu-jitsu and police officers at the same time. And then the next day everybody kind of knows each other already, so it feels like it's a little easier for people to hop on the mat and start training with each other through instruction. Like, one of the funny parts about seminars, if you go to one by yourself and you don't know anybody there, which I've done before several times, it's always awkward to find someone to train with. You got to find that other guy who didn't come with anybody. And you're like, hey, so you're looking around like, oh my God, who else came by themselves? And it's the worst if no one did, because then you got to try to, butt in with another group. But it always works out pretty good. You may end up making new friends, but what I kind of thought was, if we did the open mat on the day before, everybody that showed up would kind of have some friendships and kind of have made some new friendships. So the next day it would be just like, piece of cake, and everybody will feel super comfortable and really enjoy the seminar and learning all the techniques a lot more. So we do the super one, and then we've done some smaller ones. I did one in McAllen, Texas, and then one in Midland, Texas, with another friend of mine, Jeffro Molinax. He does a lot of stuff with Tim Kennedy and Sheepdogs Incorporated as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Ranger Up. Yeah, he's a real awesome guy. He's been doing mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu and police work a long time. He's a pretty cool guy. We've done the smaller ones there, and with those so what we do, we have to collect money to put these seminars on, but we don't pocket money. We keep enough in the budget to keep it running, but we donate all proceeds to charity, and we donate them to police charities that typically go to families of fallen officers. Is usually what we donate the money to. So like in McAllen, we had an officer that was killed in the summertime, and they wanted to raise some money for him. I believe it's Corporal Speedy out of Mission, Texas. And so the assistant chief actually trains jiu-jitsu. So we had a seminar in McAllen, and we did real well. We raised over $1,000 for his foundation, and everybody had a good time. And in Midland, we just did Midland. We haven't really finished counting up the money yet, but we did that one for, I don't know if you remember the shootout on I-20 at Midland, Odessa in August, where like 8 people were murdered. 3 officers were shot up.
Oh, my goodness.
They called it an active shooter. It was really more of a shootout that went nuts. But anyway, 3 officers got shot up. It was a DPS officer and I believe 2 Midland officers. So we raised money for the 2 Midland officers. The DPS had their own thing going, and to help with their medical bills. And there's a lot of things that happen when officers get shot up. When they die, obviously their family loses a family member that's close to them, and so they're losing someone they love. They're losing maybe a breadwinner. They're losing a lot, right? And when someone gets shot up, an officer gets shot up, it's very similar. And I think a lot of people don't realize, if an officer gets shot up, it's you'll see non-life-threatening injuries in the news. Well, I mean, define non-life-threatening. If you're losing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like you just got shot. Yeah, it's non-life-threatening. I don't know how those two don't go together at all.
No, and a lot of these guys lose their careers because they're unable to physically do their job anymore. They develop PTSD, which happened to a friend of mine who got shot up a couple of years back. She's kind of back on the job now, but for a while she couldn't work. I mean, she developed PTSD from the shooting, and you know. So there's a lot of things that happen to officers in these situations. So a lot of, Ari and I talked about it. Where do we want the proceeds to go to? And we thought, man, it's families of fallen officers and wounded officers. They need it more than anybody in law enforcement, and they're so forgotten. No one talks about them. No one talks about officers who are killed or injured. Like, it's even even departments forget about their own officers that have been injured.
Really?
I hate to say it, but it happens where officers are just, hey, you can't do the job anymore. Thank you for your service.
I mean, I guess you've got to. I mean, I guess it's one of those things like you got to go out every single night and it's dangerous, and if a guy can't do it, it's like, man, I really miss that guy, but I got to go do my job. I mean, I guess I can see it now. Like, thinking about it, I can see where that could happen pretty easy.
It does. A department has to fill a spot, and they have to have somebody who's physically capable of doing the job. So I get that part. There really needs to be something more done to address when officers are no longer able to do the job because they got injured on the job. There's really not much to it now. There's sometimes some medical disabilities and whatnot, but that's a mess too. There really needs to be a lot more done. First response, you said it at the beginning. Police officers get no slack, and that's an example of of it right there. You get hurt, and we'll give you a little medical disability, which may not be very much, and good luck. And that's kind of the end of your career. You better figure out what else you're going to do to pay your bills and to survive. So,
well, man, like, this is tugging on all sorts of my heartstrings because I had no idea that all the things go to charity, and that type of charity where it's something you are directly improving the lives of people like in the same line of work as you that have lost like family members or they're injured or whatever the situation is. That's just like, this makes it even like, it makes me even more a fan of this Invictus program you got going on.
Thank you, man. It feels good to reach out to do a couple things. One is to spread jiu-jitsu, because I'm a big, obviously by now I'm a big believer in jiu-jitsu, especially for police officers. To meet up with other officers who train and to convince other officers to start training, and then to be able to donate something and to have some type of impact in somebody's life who's been hurt on this job. It's a hard job, man. It's a thankless job. We're always under scrutiny. Everybody always assumes the worst about us. But I tell you, the best people that I know on the planet are police officers, man. They're good people. They get into the job for 95% of them get into the job for the right reasons, because they want to help people. They want to get out, make the community safer, and they're trying to do the right thing all the time. And they get put in positions that are so impossible, and it's so hard for a civilian to understand if you don't do it all the time. And they do an incredible job doing it. They really do. Not the overwhelming majority of the time, they do such an incredible job. And we have police officers are in contact with people 24/7 around our country, and you got like around 1 million police officers or something like that making contact constantly with people. And when you look at it from that perspective, and you look at the numbers, the numbers of situations where officers are sustained excessive force complaints or bad shootings, so minimal. Like, the percentages are so low. I don't want to quote a percentage that's not correct, but it's like, when I say extremely low, we're talking 0.1% of complaints are legit. It's so low. The officers are doing a tremendous job, but they just don't get the credit. And it's a bummer that people don't realize how good a job everybody's doing out there, because they just see the flashy media stories. But these guys and girls are doing an incredible job.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from my former podcast with Damon, and he was a police officer for 20 years as well, or 20 plus years. And I think that was one of the biggest takeaways when I talked to him, and what I was trying to get his point of view on it is that he was like, you're always at a 10, and people, for some reason, people assume that that I should know you. Like, you just because you pull somebody over because they've got a blinker on, they assume that you should know that they didn't mean any harm when you're walking up to that door. But he's like, for me, I don't know if you just came from robbing a store. I don't know if you've got a weapon. I don't know if you're on drugs. Like, I'm pulling you over because of this small violation, but I don't know you. Like, I have no idea who you are, what your intentions are, so I have to be at a 10 all the time.
Man, I've had that conversation, and I don't work the street anymore. Like I said, I'm administrative now, but I've had that conversation a million times, and people get offended because you're asking them questions, and it almost doesn't even matter your demeanor. You can be as nice as you can be. They're irritated. You're stopping them, and that you're suspecting them of anything, that's illegal or whatever. And it's not even that it's suspecting them. You're just doing your job and asking questions and being inquisitive.
Yeah.
But I've had to say a million times, I was like, look, man, I was like, dude, have we met before? They'd be like, no. So I don't know who you are, right? No, you don't. So I have no idea your background. I have no idea where you just came from. I don't know what you have in your vehicle. I don't know your intentions. I don't know. But I got to be safe and ask questions. And sometimes that would help, and sometimes it didn't. But no, you nailed it right there. That's people just assume it's just me. Like, well, I don't know who just you is. I've never met you before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it that way, think about living life. I put myself in in your shoes, and I'm like, think about living life at a 10 all the time. Then how do you come down from that when you get off your shift? And I think this is one thing where that sort of thing, finding something like jiu-jitsu is such an amazing thing that it's opened up. And thanks to the Gracies, say what you want to about all mixed martial arts and the idiots that are now there. They've made these things popular where there's more places for people like you and people who need to go roll and to relieve some, get a little stress reliever, go work that out, release those endorphins or whatever. It's so important to have that after you get done off a shift, I would feel like.
Man, I tell you, there's just days that I need to go try to strangle somebody. I always see that meme where I just need to strangle somebody. Well, guess what? There's places you can do it legally. It's called a jiu-jitsu academy. You can get your stress out and try to strangle somebody. Now they get to try to strangle you back, and that's what makes it fun. But for sure, having something and mental health and police work is huge. When I got into law enforcement, I remember I was in the police academy. One of the things they talked about, they have a section where they talk about mental health, and they kind of address it in the sense of you need to have friends outside of law enforcement. You need to have activities outside of law enforcement to stay, balanced. And you need to watch out for alcoholism because a lot of officers actually do fall into that to deal with their stress. You're at it like your friend said, you are at a 10 all the time, especially if you're on the street doing traffic stops, responding to different calls for service that can be pretty stressful. You're constantly there, and it becomes your norm. So you don't even know that your brain is on going into the red, is sitting in the red all the time. It's your norm, and if you don't decompress that somehow, you're going to find a way to decompress it. If it's either going to be healthy or it's going to be unhealthy. And if you find healthy ways, then a lot of times you get super addicted to them, like I am. When it comes to jiu-jitsu and lifting, I have to do it. I have to do it. It makes me feel better mentally and physically. But there are people that resort to other things like alcoholism or whatever because they don't find a healthy outlet to relieve that stress. One of the ways that they've said it, and this is the best visual I can get of it, like when you first start law enforcement, you have a glass and you start filling it up with water every day as you have stress. Well, eventually you get to the top, and there's no more places for that water to go. So if you don't find a way to dump some of that water out, you're going to overflow, and it's going to come out somewhere. And it could come out at work, and I think you see sometimes videos of that happening where guys just lose it on the job. Now we see videos of it. Or it's going to come out at home, or it's going to come out someplace. You've got to find a way to empty that cup a little to keep yourself balanced, because that stress, I can feel it ticking up when I'm not getting rid of it. I mean, it's always there.
It's kind of that's a great way. I love the glass thing. I've never heard that before, but how crazy cool it is because, I've had stressful situations in my life and jobs and just always having to be, maybe not at a 10, but I've always had to be, there's no break. It didn't seem like there was any relief from that. And you're right, it becomes a norm. And I was like, I'm not stressed out, but others, can tell. And there was a funny saying at one of my other jobs. The GM of the entire company was like, "You're the only one that's just like calm and smiling." Goes, "You're the guy that's going to be on the roof shooting people one day, like because you never ever let out any sort of like you're stressed at all. So you're the guy I'm scared of." And you know, he wasn't right in the sense of shooting people on a roof, but he was right in the sense of I didn't have, at that point in time in my life, I didn't have any outlets to relieve any of that stress. I just thought I was fine. And then come to realize once I finally got to places where I could relieve that, I realized what kind of a zombie robot and how I was dealing with other aspects of my life that I could have thought, like gone through better ideas, that like my mind was clouded up with the stress.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that I love the glass thing. Like if you don't get rid of it, it's gonna go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, your brain's a tricky thing, and it's funny because when we talk about PTSD and people are just I was watching a World War II documentary, and they were talking about, I don't know if you know the story about Patton. He was on the front lines of World War II, and I think it might have been Italy. He was in some hospital, and he was talking to all these wounded guys, and the ones who were physically wounded, he was giving them a war, like a Purple Heart, and telling them to get better. And then he came across a couple guys who were there for non-physical reasons. They were just like, I just can't take it anymore. And I think he slapped one or both of them in the face. He called them cowards, right? But what we know now is what those guys were dealing with was like being shell-shocked and PTSD from just the extreme trauma of war. And those things are like in law enforcement, and there's even cases of PTSD in non-combat related incidents, but like car accidents. I think there's like bad PTSD with car accidents and stuff like that. But your brain rewires itself. And it can actually have flashbacks into the whatever caused it and cause you severe, some severe mental trauma. And we're still just learning the ramifications of that. But it's chemical. Like it's an actual medical diagnosis that we're just now really understanding. But things like exercise and jujitsu and things like that, it helps. It helps. They know it helps with PTSD. They know it helps people with that level of stress in their life.
Yeah. Now, do you guys do a kids class?
We do. We have kids classes. Kids class is great. Like it's funny. The adult classes, guys and girls are trying to murder each other. Right? It gets intense. But the kids classes are it's almost like cuteness overload sometimes because we'll have like 3 to 6, and you'll have like these little 3-year-olds with rolled up gis out there. And you teach them like some really basic techniques, right? They're like real basic, like how to get someone on the ground and get on top. And then they'll life train too, though. They do the same things we do, and they'll just kind of like it's fun. It's fun to watch them, and it's great for kids. They have a lot of fun. Now they can get more. It can become more competition based and more intense for them for different level classes if they choose to, and some do. And there's some kids out there that are monsters, and when they grow into an adult body, Lord help you, they're going to be murking everybody. But there's kids classes, and it's great for kids. It's really good for kids.
My son did Taekwondo, and he loved it. And then he moved up real fast, and that dude can kick hard. He's got a great kick. The problem is he didn't like to hit people. And he got to a point where he couldn't move up any further unless he sparred. And it started he's got to spar and he's got to do the whole competition thing with somebody else. And he got done with one and it looked fine. Like he looked like he did a great job and they had a good time and everything. He gets done. He's like, I didn't like that at all. I'm like, why? He's like, I didn't. I was like, did it hurt getting hit? He goes, I didn't care about getting hit. I didn't want to kick him. I was like,
oh, he's a good kid. That's nice.
But I tried to get him in jiu-jitsu and wrestling because those are the two things that just the patterns that I see in humans that grow up from a kid that get into those two different things. It seems like in life they deal with things well. Like whatever challenges come across, wrestlers and jiu-jitsu practitioners have that trait together where there's just a mental toughness in there that you can't replicate in other things. So I really wanted to get into it, but I mean, I'm not going to push him into something he didn't want to. I took him to a couple classes, but I see the benefit in kids, and especially with like the bullying nowadays and all the different things that go on. It's I think there's part of that is that you have a bully, but you're going to have bullies when you're an adult. You're going to have people at work that are bullies, and unless you learn how to deal with them properly, you're going to have like that cup flowing over thing. It's just going to build. You're not going to know how to handle somebody that's coming at you. So teaching it from an early age, I think, is a crazy benefit.
I agree. And it is funny. It's something about wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I would even throw judo, people who train a lot of judo. There's something about that type of martial art. And wrestling's a martial art, in my mind. But there's something about it that it definitely creates a confidence and a calmness about the person and dealing with things outside of a gym. And it's kind of weird. It's there. And I'll tell you, I commend you on not pressing your kid into anything. I've debated on that myself. I have 2 kids. They're both in high school now. And, I tried to get them involved in jiu-jitsu, but I never pushed them. And I was like, if it's something you want to do, I'm here, and I'd like you to do it. I think it'd be good for you. I think you'll thank me many years from now. But they just weren't into it, and there's probably reasons for that. But they are very good at their own things that they like to do. They're both very artsy, and I'm kind of thankful for it. I don't think they're going to go the way of being a police officer. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I would be very stressed out if my kids are police officers. I'd be very worried about them all the time.
Isn't it funny how looking at so I've been involved in action sports my whole life, and I guess that's why the relation between the CrossFit and the jiu-jitsu and stuff, the struggle, because my wife likes to call it, I can see it in your eyes, you're doing dangerous things safely. That's what you enjoy doing. And so I've been involved in it my whole life, and on, at one point in time I was at a decent level, I like to say, in that, and you fall and hurt yourself or whatever. But then to see my own kids do it, I went camping and we went, I bluff jumped a bunch, 60, 80 feet up in the air. No big deal, right? That's fun for me. And I watch my kids climb up there by themselves, and I'm across, and they get close to the edge, and I'm starting to get nervous. And I'm like, wait a second, why am I so nervous? I did this all the time as a kid. It's so much more nerve-wracking watching your own kids do something like that.
Oh, it's I guess it's just parental instinct. You just want to protect your kids. I don't know. My kids are very artsy. They're both, my son's very much into creating movies and acting, and my daughter's a very talented actress and singer, and I'm so happy they're that way. I don't know why. I just love seeing them perform, and I just like that they're that way. And they're very different from me in that sense. Although I did kind of have an artsy background in high school. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I did have a little bit of one. But I'm very happy that they are the people they are. I'm very proud of them. But yeah, I guess it's just parental instinct. You just you don't want your kids to get hurt. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's really awesome that they are artsy, and I think all of us are kind of creative in some sort of shape or form. I grew up on a farm, but I love this podcast thing. I like all manly stuff, like from movies to your picture on Instagram to everything, anything violence related, crashing, the whole thing, I'm attracted to that style of stuff. However, at the same time, I do like the artsy thing. I like music, and I'm drawn to that. And I like to see, I kind of like to see the other side. One of my good friends used to be a special forces guy, and I mean, just super manly of the manliest dudes. And I mean, just a super nice guy, but very you can just tell. And he's also an artist. He likes to draw. So he draws on stuff, and you're going, this is very Musashi of things, to have that balance of creativity and I guess you want to say a warrior or whatever it is. Finding that good balance in between is super important.
Yeah, it's the art thing, and I've known some other guys who are former special forces guys who like to draw. And actually, I have another friend of mine he's a black belt up in Seattle, a guy named James Foster. a little bit of a mentor. He's very much into drawing and artwork and being artsy too. So yeah, there's something about the warrior artist, or I can't think of the term. There's a term for it, but yeah, there's something about that. Maybe there's so much machismo and some of the stuff that you do that you need that soft outlet to balance yourself. Maybe you're naturally balancing yourself. I'm not sure.
That's your human. That's your
right.
human, maybe. That you're not
Yeah.
like, you don't have to be that. You can adapt and treat everybody according. I mean, I think just hitting my head right now. The being a police officer is a perfect example of this, because you have to learn how to communicate well with so many different personalities and people, and read them and read their body language and everything else like that. And so having a good balance of all these different things and at least understanding them and their philosophies and all that, I imagine that that's a big part of who you are as a police officer.
I think not all officers take that perspective, but it's very. You become a much more effective police officer when you learn to understand your community and the different cultures in your community, and learn how to communicate with everybody. Um, and I think that's another word where my experience in jiu-jitsu with just having friends from all different backgrounds helped me. But yeah, for sure, it can be very helpful. I've seen officers not take that tact, and they're just, it's my way or the highway type thing, and I don't think that works very well. And I think that sometimes it gets you into bad situations as well. But yeah, I agree with you. Like you need to be able to be moldable. Maybe that's not the right term, but you need to be able to communicate with everybody that you're dealing with on their level, in a way that at least be understanding of their background.
Yeah. So I just, not to change topics totally, but when you were telling me stuff about like your background and how you came up, and that you were 200, what was it?
220 pounds.
225 pounds, and I picked up on, you look taller, by the way, on your Instagram, but that you're 5'7". So I'm putting those two numbers together, and I'm like, holy smokes. Do you ever do like a before, like do you ever scroll back and look at like before pictures and
I burned every picture of me before that. I had when I was in the military, and I was fit and not super fit, but I was fit, like typical young person fit. And then I got married and had kids, and then it was just not really trying. I would lift, here and there, because I've always lifted, but it wasn't a priority. And next thing I knew, I think I saw a picture of myself, and I was like, who the heck is that guy? Like, when did I look like this? And so I had to get back in the gym, and jiu-jitsu, it was about the same time I found jiu-jitsu, and just got focused on fitness and being fit and being a competent police officer, and just being fit not just for being a police officer, but for physical health. My dad had heart disease and died at a young age, and it had run in my family, so I didn't want that to be me either. I wanted to live a long and healthy life. So
man, and that's like what you said, 10 years ago,
that was over 12 years ago. It's when I started jiu-jitsu, so that was 12 and a half years ago.
Well, how old are you now? Because you look way. When you said you were a police officer for 20 years, I was like, "There's no way."
I'm 45 years old.
45 years old. So you started like, I guess you said you were in the military. Did you go straight out of the military into being a police officer?
Almost. I was a police officer in the military, actually, also. But I got out. I went to college for a little while, and then I got back into police work. So within a couple of years of getting out of the military, I was back in police work. It didn't take long.
Gotcha. So you have that whole transition of like, you're out of the military, you get into like a regular job, and then it just kind of slowly creeps in of the bad, like, I don't want to say bad habits, but like things catch up with you where you don't have those activities, and you're not staying fit. Like, yeah, I can do it later.
It just stopped. I just was eating pizza, watching movies, taking care of kids, and it just gets away from you. And next thing you know, you're out of shape, and you're way out of shape, and you're wearing size, I don't know, 38 pants, whatever it was back then. I don't know. But you're just big, and you're like, how did this happen? And but you just change your mindset, and you focus, and get back in shape.
Well, I think that's what, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I just picked up on it is that people want this like really quick thing. Like if they start jiu-jitsu, they want to be able to do what Nate Diaz does, what they see him do to Conor McGregor. You know, they want to see him choke people out right there while somebody's fighting him. And when they want to lose weight and they want to become ripped, they want it like tomorrow or the next day. And then and you didn't really like, so your journey of going through that, it took you a while to get to that 200 plus pounds, and then it took you a while to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everything that's worth something takes time and energy and consistency and some grinding. Very few things that are good for you or that you want to achieve are easy. Like I'm sure there's some stuff that's easy that's good for you and that makes you feel like you achieved something, but to really achieve stuff, to lose weight, to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu, to become a successful business owner, to be successful in your profession, almost all of those things take time and consistency and grinding. Like I think that's why when we see some of this newer generation, this millennials, and we're experiencing those in law enforcement now, they're coming into the ranks and they want things so fast. They want they want the perfect days off so fast. They want rank. They want responsibility so fast. And it's like you try to explain to them, look, it's not good for you. Like you're not ready. You need to do this grinding. You need to go through all this hard stuff, kind of like you were talking about earlier. You need to go through the hard stuff to learn how to deal with the next level. Like you can't just hand it to you. You got to work for it. And there's a reason you got to work for it. Are you there, brother?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta pause this real quick.
Okay. I guess I lost you.
Yeah, we got disconnected for a second. It started ringing on my phone for some reason. I was like, why is he calling me on his phone? But, anyway, no. What I was gonna ask was before that all happened was, if somebody's looking to start like get into jiu-jitsu and start, because I know when I went, you talked about like that new person comes into class, they don't know who to roll with. That's pretty much me with anything I like to do. I just jump right in, but I kind of embrace those moments and enjoy it, but it's so awkward. It's very awkward to do when you're trying to look for somebody to roll with. So what are some tips and advice before we like cut the podcast short that you would suggest if people going to try jiu-jitsu, places to look for, any and all that good stuff?
So this is what I think this is the typical advice is this. Give it 6 months, because when you first step on a mat and the first time you try to roll with somebody, you're going to get just absolutely strangled. It feels like you're drowning. A lot of people use the swimming analogy. The first 6 months is like you're basically drowning. Like you cannot get air. You're getting smothered. You're getting choked. Your body hurts. Your joints hurt because you're getting arm barred and all kinds of weird things happening to you. But after about 6 months, you kind of start to be able to tread water a little bit. And you actually be able to keep up with some people, with some other white belts, and you'll start to get a little bit of success here and there. If you can give it 6 months, you'll start to feel good about it a little bit, and I think it'll hook you. So give it 6 months, and don't quit because it's hard, because it just is what it is. It's hard. But after about 6 months, you start to get your feet underneath you a little bit. And after about a year, you're really going to get hooked in, because you're going to learn some decent techniques, and you start having a real good feel for what's happening. You're going to be strangling some people. When the new people walk in, you're going to be looking at them and rubbing your fingers together. You're going to be like, I can't wait till I get my hands on you, just like I used to get strangled. It kind of works its way up from there. But, give it 6 months, man. And I promise you the rewards. It's not just learning this new cool superpower where you can strangle people, but it's also just the friendships and the camaraderie, the physical fitness, the mental health. It's going to be extremely rewarding if you stick it out.
I like it, man. I like it. Well, let everybody know, I guess, where they can find you, find more about Invictus, any and all the stuff that you want to promote and get out there.
Sounds good. So you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook under BJJ Cop. There's a symbol of a gorilla. If you find that, that's me. And the Invictus you can find we have a website, invictusleo.com. Has all the information about instructors, what we're doing. We have some merchandise that we sell, also future seminars coming up. And you can also find us on Instagram, also under Invictus LEO. And I think that's about all I want to promote. Just go join a gym. If you guys are interested in jiu-jitsu in any form or fashion, just find a local jiu-jitsu academy and go check it out. They almost all give free, at least one free class to get your feet wet and get you a taste. And I think most of you guys will really enjoy it.
Man, well, this has been like a real pleasure of a podcast for me. I have enjoyed every moment of this. And I definitely, like we were talking beforehand, I would love to get this thing traveling on the road and come down to Houston and set up and roll with you, man. I would love it.
Great.
It would be fantastic. You can choke me out because I love getting beat up, so it's perfect.
Well, man, you're always welcome, and you're not too far away, so I hope I see you soon. And yeah, that'd be great, man. I'd love to see you down there in Houston.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks, Jay. I appreciate that.
It was a pleasure for me too, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, brother.